Good day everyone, I'm Yip Jia. Let me start off with the brief introductions on regenerative medicines. The emerging field of treatment called regenerative medicines refers to the branch of medicine that develops methods to regrow, repair, or replace damaged or diseased cells, organs, or tissues. Regenerative medicines includes the generations and use of therapeutic stem cells, tissue engineering, and the productions of artificial organs. By designing responsive biomaterials with the appropriate biophysical and biochemical characteristics, cellular response can be modulated to direct tissue healing. The idea of regeneration has persisted throughout history and started to become a possibility in the early 1900s when scientists like Alexis Carrel, who invented the technique of cell culture, were finally able to keep cells and tissue alive outside of the body. This allowed them to study the mechanisms of cell renewal, regulations, and repair. Regenerative medicines have grown from prior activities including surgery, surgical implants, and increasingly sophisticated biomaterial scaffold. The work that truly launched regenerative medicines into a tangible area of science began as cell therapy. Work in the field of transplantation in the mid-1950s gave rise to some of the first therapeutic surgeries in medicine. Performed on identical twins, the first kidney transplant occurred in 1954, followed by the first liver and lung transplant in 1963, pancreas transplant in 1966, and the first heart transplant in 1967. Bone marrow transplants for treatment of leukemia patients had the public and scientist communities in an uproar of excitement. Following this wave of enthusiasm, cell biologists began to question the capabilities of the integrity of the tissues being transplanted and wondered whether it was possible to create, grow, and harvest these tissues in the laboratory. Thus began the era of tissue engineering, which has led us into the field of regenerative medicines today. The rapid growth and promise of this field has increasingly shown the ground for the entry of some unscrupulous actors who have opportunistically seized onto the clinical potential of regenerative medicines to make deceptive claims to the patients about unproven and in some cases dangerous products. This underscores the importance of having a clear regulatory framework for developers and ensuring that those who skip these regulations are held accountable. The Drug Control Authority (DCEA) under MPRA is the executive body established under the Control of Drugs and Cosmetic Regulations 1984. The main task of this authority is to ensure the safety, quality, and efficacy of pharmaceuticals, health, and personal care products that are marketed in Malaysia. This objective is being achieved through the following. First, registrations of pharmaceutical products and cosmetics, followed by licensing of premises of importer, manufacturer, and wholesaler, and third, monitoring the quality of registered product in the market, and lastly, the adverse drug reactions monitoring. Requirements is important for businesses in all sectors, but is of critical importance to pharmaceutical, medical devices, and healthcare. Despite the efficacy and product quality, there are also a few more benefits, such as the eliminations of risks. Risk eliminations is one of the core purposes of regulatory compliance and is built into the core of all processes. Regulatory agencies spell out clear guidelines on how to identify and mitigate risks. The processes suggested by the regulatory agency act as a ready reference for organizations that manufacture products. Secondly, complying with regulatory requirements is the highest and surest guarantee and safeguard for the efficacy and efficiency of a product. When a pharmaceutical, medical devices, or healthcare company gains the trust of these wider players, it can be said to be a valued company. And yet another benefit compliance with regulatory requirements brings for companies in the pharmaceutical, medical devices, and healthcare industry is that it helps to save costs throughout the life cycle of the product. High costs are associated with ensuring compliance, but the cost of non-compliance is multifold higher. If an organization discovers that it has failed to meet regulatory requirements at any particular stage, it is usually impossible to abandon work at that stage and start afresh. The cost is astronomical in such an exercise, and if they have to fulfill the penalty requirements of the regulatory agencies, the costs spike up no end. So meeting regulatory compliance requirements at every stage is the safest and most economical options for a company in the pharmaceutical, healthcare, or medical devices industry.
Hi, I'm Nitya Raj. Safety of regenerative medicines, ability to avoid surgery. Both stem cells and PRP therapy may help you avoid surgeries and reduce pains. Recovery time is minimal. Most patients are able to return to their normal activities following stem cells or PRP therapy, both of which are outpatient procedures. Healing happens faster. Regenerative medicine is known for helping patients heal faster than treatment with conventional medicine. Stem cells and pellet-rich plasmas work quickly to repair injured joints, tissues, enhancing the body's own ability to heal after an injury. Fourthly, there is no need for medication or general anesthesia. Your physicians will use ultrasound technology to ensure that the injection is done at a precisely that right area. It low risk since own cells are used. Regenerative medicines produced are generally considered low risk as your own cells are used to heal your injuries. The ethical issues. The use of human embryos stem cells in research. The second ethical issue is the risk of using stem cells or any RMs. The third is the information and the consent from whom the RM or the stem cells are collected from.
Hello, my name is Ranjita and I will be talking about regenerative medicine application.
One of the regenerative medicine application that was approved by Food and Drug Administration is hematopoietic progenitor cells, cord blood by MD Anderson Cord Blood Bank. Hematopoietic progenitor cells are stem cells that have ability to form mature blood cells such as red blood cells, platelets, and white blood cells. HPC can be derived from three sources, which are bone marrow, peripheral blood, and umbilical cord. HPC in this product is collected from umbilical cord. Hence, the cord blood will be collected after the delivery process and cryopreserved in cryobag for the future use. HPC cord blood is manufactured by MD Anderson Cord Blood Bank at the University of Texas, Austin. It was approved by United States FDA on June 21, 2018. The final product of HPC cord blood consists of 25 ml total volume containing 10% of dimethyl sulfoxide and 1% of dextran 40. It will be packed in two compartment cryobag, where the larger bag contains 20 ml and the smaller bag contains 5 ml, so that we can use the smaller compartment for the further manipulation without thawing the larger. The purpose of HPC is to replace or rebuild a patient's hematopoietic system, which is a blood system. There are two types of HPC donor, which are autologous and allogenic. Autologous is HPC derived from our own cord blood, and allogenic is HPC derived from unrelated donors. So basically, HPC cord blood from allogenic donor will be used in HPC transplantation in patients to repair their hematopoietic system and immunologic system. So HPC can treat hematologic malignancies, solid tumors, aplastic anemia, and inherited metabolic and immunodeficiency diseases. And there is also a proof that it can be used for treatment of autoimmune diseases, genetic diseases, and other indications. This product is administered to patients through vein. Basically, HPC cord blood can proliferate in vitro, and they have ability to express the cell marker CD34, which is important for the cell identification. So, the HPC cord blood harvested with the help of CD34 will be proliferated in vitro and injected intravenously into patient. They will migrate to the bone marrow, where they divide and mature. The mature cells are released into the bloodstream, where some will circulate and others will migrate to tissue sites to restore blood counts. However, the precise mechanism of action is still unknown. The efficacy of HPC cord blood was established by FDA analysis using data from multiple cord blood banks in the FDA dockers and the cord blood transplantation study. The intravenous infusion of HPC cord blood able to restore blood count and function, including immune function and blood cells from bone marrow. But in some cases, mature leukocytes which results from HPC cord blood transplantation may able to synthesize enzyme that can improve cellular function of some native tissues in patients who have enzymatic abnormalities due to certain severe types of inborn disorder. However, the precise mechanism of action is unknown. The HPC source for allogenic transplantation will be chosen based on donor availability, human leukocyte antigen HLA matching, and overall benefit of risk assessment. Unrelated cord blood transplantation has extended the availability of allogenic hematopoietic stem cell transplantation to patients. However, there are several risks in HPC transplantation. Firstly, overdosage. The overdose infusion may alter the mental status of patient and lead them to coma. Secondly, the risk of infection. Patient can be infected from the allogenic donor, and when they have been undergo chemotherapy before the transplant, it will suppress their ability to fight back the infection. Then, some people may develop hepatic veno-occlusive disease with additional kidney or lung abnormalities after having transplantation. Doctors can treat this using medication called Defitelio. Furthermore, the graft versus host disease occurs in allogenic stem cell transplant. This disease arises when the HLA of donor does not match with the recipient, and doctors may use drugs to reduce this risk. So, the risk of HPC cord blood can be serious and fatal. Standard approved chemotherapy or biologics should be considered first. If failed standard therapy, other hematopoietic stem cell sources such as autologous or matched bone marrow or peripheral cells should be considered.
Assalamualaikum and selamat sejahtera. I'm Muhammad Alif Iqmal bin Badrul Syam, and for my part, I will be discussing the prospects of regenerative medicine. Firstly, the prospects is that it offers valuable treatment options that are rare in daily clinical settings. An example is the reconstruction of bladders using a collagen scaffold seeded with a patient's own bladder cells. Second, we can innovate on traditional approaches in treating diseases and wounds, such as the use of regenerative medicine in the treatment of burn wounds and tissue regeneration. Next, we can introduce different treatments entirely that were not possible outside of regenerative medicine. For instance, the reconstruction of blood vessels via living vascular grafts made of the patient's own cells, as well as scaffolds and bioreactors. Next is suggestions for improvement of RM, and we can do so by looking at the current problems faced and how we can fix them. Firstly, some of the problems we have include lack of studies confirming the safety and efficiency and effectiveness of the regenerative medicine we have. Second are ethical issues surrounding regenerative medicine, such as the uses of fetuses and umbilical cords to extract stem cells. And lastly, public understanding of regenerative medicine is still quite low. So here are some possible suggestions that we can take. We can translate the many different laboratory findings into modern and viable therapies. We can encourage cooperation between clinicians and researchers like bioengineers, biologists, geneticists, and so on. We can improve the rate of evaluation for the efficacy and efficiency of new regenerative medicine treatment, specifically before the preclinical trial phases. And finally, we can try to communicate to both the public as well as other researchers outside the field of medicine regarding regenerative medicine, its processes, and its necessities towards improving treatments. To conclude our presentation, we believe that regenerative medicine can open a new door for opportunities in improving tried and true treatments for injuries and diseases, as well as introduce new ones. While still considered very experimental, continued studies and research on regenerative medicine will definitely improve the progress into accepting the wide use of regenerative medicine in treating patients in the future.